Well, hi. Yes, like Mitchell said, my name is Astri Martin. I am the Senior Manager of Strategy and Operations for Southwest Airlines Renewable Ventures, and I will get into what that means. But basically, I'm here representing Southwest Airlines, and I'm going to talk to you today about sustainable aviation fuel and how we're approaching it at Southwest. And so I'll get into it. So a little bit about Southwest, and actually despite not having a route into Cedar Rapids, which I unfortunately learned the hard way, I will work on that. Please don't hold that against me throughout this presentation. We are the largest airline in the domestic US by nonstop passengers carried. We are also the only US airline with an investment grade credit rating by all three credit agencies. So I'll ask you to hold on to that point as I move through the rest of the presentation, particularly as I talk about partnerships and long-term SAF, sustainable aviation fuel offtakes. This third one always surprises people. We're a pretty big company, 75,000 employees, 117 airports, and 11 countries. I highly recommend checking out our vacation packages, folks. 11 countries. Take a flight. You deserve it. We go to some cool places. We've also been named one of Fortune's most admired companies since 2009. And last bullet here, and probably the most relevant for the rest of this conversation, is we, like most U.S. Airlines, have committed to replacing 10% of our jet fuel with sustainable aviation fuel by 2030. So for some context, this is our Nonstop to net zero plan. So this lays it out from 2025, which is rapidly approaching, to 2050. And I think we've heard a lot about this today, right? This culmination in 2050 of net zero carbon emissions. And you can see there's more than SAF on this screen, right? We have reducing single-use plastics, electrifying some of our ground ops, reducing energy utilization, all really great things, but ultimately leading to this 2050 net zero carbon emissions. So I'm gonna switch views on you one more time. And here's our path to get there, which is a little less diversified, maybe I'll say. So the first big chunk is this dark blue, or the darker color, 35%, and that's gonna be our fleet modernization. So that's, just basically more fuel-efficient aircraft, and we're working on that. But the next sizable chunk is the yellow color, moving downwards in the screen. 48%, nearly 50%, is gonna be SAF. So that is obviously the most critical lever that we have at Southwest Airlines to achieve our sustainability goals. And really, I would argue that's the most critical lever for all US commercial airlines to pull to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050, which is publicly stated goals really for everyone's sustainability goals. And this is assuming the scale of which, based off the SAF Grand Challenge roadmap released from the Department of Energy. And so that is kind of, the 35 billion gallons of SAF that we've heard a lot about today. So switching views on you one more time. This is that at scale. And I've heard some different numbers about the ethanol industry, so sorry if this math isn't quite correct. We're human here. But this is to show really how the projected SAF volumes are expected to grow in the industry. So within the SAF Grand Challenge roadmap, the basis here is that by 2030, we are wanting to have 3 billion gallons of jet fuel, basically replacing 10% of all jet fuel. Moving to 2050, where we replace 100% of jet fuel, 35 billion gallons in the US. That's massive demand. It's here compared with 2021 ethanol consumption equivalent, which is about 38 to 58 billion gallons of ethanol, just for context. But this is something where again, going back to particularly Southwest sustainability goals and the U.S. aviation goals, this is something that we are committed to, we've committed to through our plans through 2050. And as you can see in this map, it's going to take everyone in the value chain to meet this market demand. Gen 1 ethanol producers, Gen 2 growers, SAF producers, airlines, consumers, everyone's going to need to play a part in this value chain to make this market demand. So, moving to how Southwest specifically is approaching this problem. Southwest started a renewable ventures fund called Southwest Airlines Renewable Ventures, where we are focused on scaling the production of low carbon jet fuel. We have really the purpose of fulfilling this nonstop to net zero, that pathway to getting us to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And our guiding principles, rather than just throwing money at SAF and just trying to acquire it ASAP, we want to make sure that there's economic viability across the value chain. We want to understand every single player in the value chain that is contributing to the success of the SAF and the biofuels market, and how everything fits into the puzzle that needs it to scale. And the operational scalability, environmental scalability obviously feeds into that top guiding principle. So within that, we've had 2 publicly announced investments, one of which is LanzaJet, which is a alcohol to jet company. They have the first commercial operating ethanol to jet facility here in the U.S. And they also were just recently announced as Time's top, one of the most influential companies. We're really excited to work with them. And we also announced we fully acquired SAFFiRE Renewables, which is a company that I will go into detail about here very soon. This next slide is one of my favorites because I truly cannot believe I get to work with these people every day. This is another slide just about Southwest's commitment to solving this problem with SAF. So, or committing to trying to solve the SAF problem, I'll say. This is our team at Southwest Airlines Renewable Ventures / SAFFiRE. So Tom Nealon is our SAFFiRE CEO and the president of Southwest Airlines Renewable Ventures. He's actually the former president of Southwest Airlines. He is an extraordinary leader, a visionary, and he is passionate about this. He's also very realistic, which I think is what you need in a market like this. Anthony Gregory also is former VP of Ground Ops, absolutely remarkable. And then on the right, you have people who are insane in the best way. They are the engineers. Mary Kate, Mark, and Nitin, all engineers. Mary Kate, former DOE, Department of Energy, former NREL, National Renewable Energy Laboratory. Mark Yancey has commercialized cellulosic technology before, has commercialized several Gen 1 ethanol plants, been in the industry for several years. And then Nitin, our director of engineering, has worked at DuPont engineering plants where he's helped scale cellulosic ethanol technology before, PhD in chemical engineering. We're really trying to make sure that we've got the resources to make sure that we understand the value chain from front to end. And it's just been a crazy ride, and we're excited to have these people on board. So now I'm going to talk to you the SAFFiRE Renewables component, which, as a reminder, was one of the investments that Southwest Airlines Renewable Ventures has invested in. Basically our cornerstone investment, really. So SAFFiRE Renewables is a company that intends to enable renewable ethanol from agricultural byproducts, particularly corn stover right now, to be converted into low carbon fuel. So basically we take corn stover, turn that into 2G ethanol, convert that into SAF via the ATJ, alcohol to jet pathway, and then blend that with Jet A and put that into airplanes, hopefully Southwest airplanes, and we fly. Our priorities here, very important. I'm going to highlight number 2, and this is something that we'll discuss later in the presentation too, is partnerships. As I mentioned, our key strategy with Southwest Airlines Renewable Ventures is that we think it's key, the value chain component of this is that you need all players to participate. You can't have SAF without the growers, you can't have ethanol without the growers, and vice versa. We want to make sure that the farmers and the fuel producers, high quality stovers, without high quality stover and all of the local forums need to enable the efficient production of high quality fuel. We also are proud to partner with the U.S. Department of Energy, NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, Conestoga, and LanzaJet, and of course Southwest Airlines. This is some context on where we've been with SAFFiRE Renewables. So for history, NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, actually developed the technology that is SAFFiRE. So SAFFiRE is kind of like a technology holding company. NREL developed the technology that can turn the biomass, the corn stover, that can turn it into the cellulosic ethanol. And so Southwest Airlines actually invested in SAFFiRE Renewables back in 2022. And then throughout this time, we've worked with the DOE and progressed the project of SAFFiRE to where it is now. In November of 2023, we excitedly announced a partnership with Conestoga Energy. They will host our pilot host site for SAFFiRE at their Archelon site in Liberal, Kansas. We also conducted in September a first test corn stover harvest in Liberal, Kansas. We tested 600 bales doing a storage temperature moisture study for those bales. In February of this year, we announced that investment into LanzaJet. In March of this year, we fully acquired SAFFiRE Renewables. And then later this year in 2024, we expect to break ground in Liberal, Kansas on our pilot site for SAFFiRE Renewables. That's to test the technology and make sure it works, go through all of the challenges. And then in mid-2025, that's when we'll start to actually run the pilot plant. And this is the fun part. And if you have questions, remember those tech folks that I pointed out that I said were insane? I'll give you their contact information. No, I'm kidding. I'll do my best. So this is the process of SAFFiRE. And really where SAFFiRE is differentiated from previous cellulosic ethanol attempts is in this second bullet that's sort of highlighted in blue, or in the big square, is in the pretreatment. So as I mentioned, NREL developed this technology in the pretreatment that's less corrosive, it has a higher pH, and it operates at atmospheric pressure. And this helps mitigate the issues of previous cellulosic ethanol attempts. And really, once the biomass is broken down, the downstream process looks almost identical to current ethanol procedures. So there's a lot of operating synergies actually that can take place with co-locating with current 1G ethanol plants. So the fermentation, separation, storage, transport, the vision for SAFFiRE technology is that it's actually co-located at a 1G ethanol facility. And that way, there's lower CapEx, lower OpEx, water, utilities, land use, wastewater treatment, et cetera. All of those can be shared costs between the SAFFiRE plant and the current 1G ethanol plant, and it's an added revenue stream for the 1G ethanol producer. And then moving forward downstream to like the alcohol to jet, as I mentioned, the alcohol to jet stream is taken by LanzaJet or an approved ATJ provider. And then SAF, by partnering with Southwest Airlines, as I mentioned, our balance sheet, we're able to secure long-term 15, 20-year offtakes that significantly de-risks these investments with a secured offtake in buyer for the SAF produced. And I'm sure with this crowd, no one noticed that I skipped over the first part here about the feedstock being corn stover. So corn stover is transparently by far our biggest challenge right now. And biggest challenge is probably like a 3-part challenge, right? It is handling, storage, processing. We're running a lot of tests. We have a lot of mitigation strategies, but we are fully aware it is going to be a battle. And we are really interested in learning. We have some consultants that we're working with, but we're doing a lot of testing, and we're really interested in learning from farmers on how it's used, what's sustainably able to be removed, and how this can actually work at scale. And so that is part of our process in learning and testing this pilot, and why we are so interested to be at these conferences and learn from you guys. So really thankful again to be here, and eager to hear what you all have to say and how you use it. So the last, or maybe the last, close to the last, is our partnerships. And I've mentioned this a few times, but for SAFFiRE and Southwest Airlines Renewable Ventures in general, is we want to grow the pie. I think for SAF, we understand that this is a huge market. And, you know, the airlines need it. We've committed to it. And, but we can't get to it if we don't have the farmers, the growers, the ethanol producers. And so we want to make sure that when we're investing and when we're moving forward, that the farmers are incented to optimize the CI score of their crops. That ultimately influences a higher value, lower carbon ethanol and SAF product. We want to make sure that if our SAFFiRE technology is co-located at an ethanol facility, it's an additional revenue stream. It's not an or, it's an and. And lastly, for SAF producers, we want to help partner with Southwest in de-risking the investments to help create these things, get off the ground, and keep them moving. So we don't want to be just a 2G, you know, SAFFiRE technically makes cellulosic 2G ethanol, and we don't just want to be that. We want to help connect the dots. And we think the best way to do that is by creating partnerships. So some key takeaways here, and I think we've talked a lot about these today, is we truly believe we're at the front end of a multi-decade energy transition. And in order to do that successfully, we need to be able to meaningfully de-risk investments. And I think we've heard it a lot, is, you know, 40B, 45Z. It's so encouraging to see movement, but it's not moving the needle, right? We need more. We have to see more. Climate smart ag is so important, and we need to see more dollars for it. And I think we're committed to making sure that, you know, that happens at some capacity, and however that is. And I think we're interested in hearing more about what we need to do to get there. I talked a lot about corn stover and ATJ, but with SAF, we need all pathways to work. I think it was Monty who was up here that showed all the pathways, HEFA, FT, et cetera. I didn't even mention those today, but Southwest Airlines is looking into all pathways. We need them all to come to fruition. We're in support of all pathways. The market is huge. We just simply need them all to work, all feedstocks to work. And then lastly, I just touched on this, but we're really here to learn. You know, we're an airline. We are not in the ethanol business. We are not in the farming corn stover business, and we are here to learn, and we are so excited to learn. And so if you are interested in learning more about SAFFiRE Renewables, corn stover, what we're doing, what we're trying to do, our mission at SAFFiRE, our mission with Southwest Renewable Airlines, what did I just say? Southwest Airlines Renewable Ventures, please reach out. We are really eager to just learn more about this and see how we can help. So my contact info is up here. Feel free to reach out, and thank you so much for having me here. And I think we're doing a panel. We are.
That was awesome. Let's give Astri a round of applause.